Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials, and our streaming audience. Welcome to the August 25, 2025 regular city council meeting. We are meeting at 26 South Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, and I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Bennett.
Present.
Payne. McCourt.
Here.
Barnes.
Here.
McKeever.
Here.
Dement.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Dunn. Here. Creed.
Here.
Ms. Payne informed me that she would not be in attendance this evening. Is there a motion to excuse her from tonight's meeting? Motion by Ms. Bennett, second by Ms. Preston, and the clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
McCourt.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Dunn. Creed.
Yes.
Ms. Payne is excused. I would ask Ms. Preston to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 1 as item 5 is similar and contains the appropriate associated documents.
Is there a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Creed. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
McCourt.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Item 1 will be removed from the agenda. We now will move on to the minutes from the August 11, 2025 regular meeting. They've been distributed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Mr. McCourt, second by Ms. Dunn. The clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
McCourt.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. We'll move to reports of committees. Development Committee, Mr. Dement.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Development Committee held a committee meeting earlier tonight, 5:15, to discuss the Green Chiillicothe Joint Economic Development District. We made some good progress on that, and we decided to hold another committee meeting at some point in the near future. And as far as tonight's agenda, we have one item on tonight's agenda, item number 5, which is the second reading of a resolution regarding the potential conveyance of a city-owned property located at 145 South Bridge Street and 364 East 5th Street to the Greater Chiillicothe and Ross County Development to facilitate future housing development and authorize city officials to continue coordination and review of a potential development agreement. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering Committee, Ms. Dunn.
We have 2 items on the agenda tonight. We have item number 4 and item number 8, I believe it is, on the agenda. 7? Okay. I thought I had it down. Yes, item number 7 on the agenda, yes.
Thank you. Finance and Technology Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. First one is item number 2, and that's for us to return $34,486 of coronavirus funds back to the federal government at the appropriate time. I'll make a motion to waive the 3-read rule so we can get that back to them and off of our books. Next one is item number 3. That's an ordinance appropriating funds to cover the increase in cost of citywide insurance policies. And so the treasurer or the auditor can get those items paid at the appropriate time. I'll ask to waive the 3-read rule on that as well. And last one is item number 6. and that's an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to reallocate funds between the salary and fringe benefits within the same fund for the remainder of the calendar year. And knowing that they're going to have to start doing that soon at the appropriate time, I will ask to waive the 3-read rule on that as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne, who is not here tonight. I don't think we have any report. So we'll move on to Parks and Rec Committee, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. There's nothing new to discuss, but I would like to talk about the August 20th meeting from the Parks and Rec Board. Old business, the last day of the pool was August 17th, and dog swim was held for the last few hours of the season. I guess that was pretty good. Talking about the, one second. Talking about the complaints about the geese are rising. Bonner has been in contact with ODNR discussing possible solutions in the past. The city has tried lasers, boats on the lake, and dogs. Most effective was dogs. However, Chiillicothe is outside the service area for all companies. So we're still looking into that. The Igniters Car Show had another great year. Continues to bring a lot of people from all over to visit Chiillicothe Park. New business. The old service garage to be demolished here soon to make way for the CVB building. The Chiillicothe U Flag Football League begins on the 23rd. Diamond 1 officially closed. All fall ball will be played in the annex. And I think that's it. The special events coming up. We have Hope Fest, which will be this weekend, the 30th, and the candy cane race, the candy race, the same day. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety Service Committee, Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Safety Services has nothing on the agenda this evening and therefore has nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Utilities has nothing on the agenda for tonight and nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Mr. McQuirk.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. City's Services has nothing on the agenda and nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing on the agenda, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports of officials. Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I will make up for council's brevity with quite a few reports tonight. First, I want to just give what I will couch as what I know about the latest at Pixel. What I will say broadly is that we are in a position that is unlike many when a major employer departs a community, in that it has been a sort of public affair, more so than, let's say, a steel mill going bankrupt and closing in Youngstown. And so as a part of that, we in government and other community leaders have been in probably multiple meetings per week since the week of April 15th, whether it is processing communications from Pixel, creating resources, potential resources for former employees at Pixel, trying to create an environment that would attract a new purchaser, working through the types of incentives that might attract new purchasers, working through how to position the community to acquire the property, the community to mitigate any environmental concerns that are certainly on that property. And it has felt like a whole lot of hurry up and wait because we have been very busy, but have not been able to relay or experience much progress. We've met with potential purchasers and had conversations, and what my experience is now, and what I know, which is probably what has been relayed to the public before, but might be helpful to hear from me, is that HIG, the company that owns Pixel, is solicited and is still considering purchase options. So that's what I know today about the position of that facility. I'll comment on a couple other things. I spoke with the USW union president, which is the union that represented the largest number of employees at the mill, because there were recent reports about Pixel not paying employees and holding back final paychecks and pensions, 401ks, that sort of thing. So I called and talked to Jeff, and Jeff reported to me that as far as he knew, every employee who had a payroll issue has now been paid, and his understanding was that because the final payouts were an odd way of doing payroll, that it was a payroll issue, not an intentional held back situation. So as of talking to him, his understanding was that all employees have been paid. When speaking about any pension or 401k issues, he let me know that in terms of employees who have been at Pixel, over the years they have negotiated different contracts. So some employees are vested in the pension program, and other employees, depending on when they've started, are in a 401k program. As most people know, those programs are often managed by an entity other than the employer. And then all of those programs have different rules around cashing out and that sort of thing. What he relayed to me was that his understanding was that from what he saw as the union president, Pixel was doing nothing to intentionally withhold any pension payments or any 401k cash outs, that sort of thing. That there were communications between Pixel and the entity that does the pension management, the 401k management, that sort of thing, about making sure that those things happen well. He also told me that there were internal communications with HR to make sure, because there have been layoffs, but that they are not complete, those are coming, that there have been internal communications how to make those last payrolls work as they're supposed to work. And so what I left with him was that, you know, I will keep lines of communication open with him to make sure that I am receiving the right information about that facility, and that if there is a way that the city or the county or the state can help, you know, whether it's the force of law or some other way, that we might be able to do that. That topic is a segue to the next topic, which is Pixel's operation of 2 wells that have kept a contaminated toxic plume left over from the Wearover site, now managed by Howmet, and the EPA's previous and continuing concerns that the cessation of those wells could lead to the migration of that plume. So I've had several conversations and meetings with the EPA so that I can understand, as a layperson, what the technical aspects are of that situation, because it sounds very bad. Now, I reported on this 2 council meetings ago. My understanding, as I reported it then, I've confirmed with the EPA that my understanding is correct, but what has changed since that meeting is that the EPA, that Howmet has agreed to install 2 additional monitoring wells, whose task it is to monitor anything that is in the ground. But additionally, the EPA is not satisfied with that as an end result. And so, from my impression, what we have is a situation that is approximately 30 plus years old. And the biggest question that I have posed to the EPA is, what is the scenario that requires full remediation and cleanup? And what is the scenario that requires monitoring? I think for us, from a legal aspect, this community deserves the answer to what is the answer to that question. And so I have set up a meeting with representatives from the EPA and the city council and Ross County commissioners so that we can hear directly from the EPA answers to those and other questions that we have. Because I think it's one thing to hear talking points, and it's another thing to actually for us to understand those questions. And so my understanding today is that the wells that exist and are in operation by Pixel are still in existence and operation, and that the cessation of paper making activities at the paper mill does not necessarily mean that the wells stop operating, and the wells are what have maintained the location of the plume over time. And so what I think we need to know as a community is A, why was the cleanup not required in the first place? Because obviously these have been here for a long time. And B, what scenario either tells us, okay, now Howmet has to clean it up? Because what EPA has told me is that the response from Howmet is the response that they are satisfied with today for a short-term scenario. They don't expect 2 new monitoring wells to be the permanent scenario, obviously because it is unclear what happens to the existing wells that are keeping the plume at bay, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so, like with Pixel, I will continue to report what I know, and I think it's only appropriate that if at the appropriate time there becomes the need for us to either support the EPA's request or demands to Howmet, or find out how those the wells need to continue to operate, whatever it is, I feel confident that at least my communications with the EPA and their willingness to either A, inform us, answer questions, answer calls, I feel like that open door has been very helpful. Relaying information to the public right now feels like my responsibility. And then the long-term, either maintenance, or I think as a community, we would prefer remediation and cleanup, is where I think we need to get to. And so figuring out what how we get to that end goal is sort of the end question that I think we need answered from the Ohio EPA. Segue from there, my monthly office hours this month are at the water treatment plant tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'm doing my regular office hours, come, show up, answer any questions you might have. But the folks who run the water treatment plant are going to be there. They will answer questions you have to the extent they can on technical questions, but then they're also going to facilitate a tour or tours of the water treatment plant. So if you haven't done that before, I don't think we've done tours. We shut them down during COVID, and so that's starting up again. I think that's a good opportunity for people, A, to just know where the water treatment plant is. I think people drive by that facility and don't know what it is. It's on back road, so if you go back through the park towards Borland's Crossing, that's at the water treatment plant tomorrow at 9 a.m. I don't have a good segue onto the next topic, which is road paving. The city paving program is pretty close to complete. I think we probably have 2 to 3 more weeks of city paving. Carlisle was closed, I think, yesterday or the day before for paving. That project is, I would say, adjacent to our 2024 OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission, application and award. So we paved up to a certain point, but if you've been on that road, you'll recognize that there's actually a slip happening. And so our 2024 OPWC application had 3 components to it. One was some paving projects, minimal. 2 was if you're on Bellevue going up the hill on the right, There are smaller blocks that we've built as sort of an ad hoc or an impromptu sort of retaining wall. Those will be replaced with a permanent retaining wall because of that slip on Bellevue. And then the final part of the OPWC project is slip repair on Carlisle going up the hill and around the corner. We don't want the road to slip off down the hill. The reason I'm bringing that up is because we've already closed the road once this week. It will likely be closed again this week on either the 27th or 28th to do soil borings for the slip project, which is being designed for next year. Speaking of road paving, the first component of the Appalachian Community Grant project that will be done is the paving program. Related to that, that is the roads around the park. It is likely that we will start to see some construction within the next 45 days, most likely on Water Street. Water Street originally had a significant amount of the design project that would add sidewalk width to that corridor, but as pricing has come in, like everything else in the world, those sidewalk expenses have been very high. And so we've backed off of widening sidewalks there, but all the same traffic calming, the roadway diet plans that council approved would still be happening. So when you see construction begin to ramp up on Water Street, that is out of our regular paving program, but into the ACGP program. Staying on the theme of paving, for those who don't know, the paving levy did not make it to the Board of Elections, so that will not be on the ballot. That puts us in a position where the levy, which has been in place now for 9.5 years, will not collect income tax starting January 1st. So today our income tax is 2%. It will go down to 1.8% starting January 1st, 2026. That does a couple things for us, but mostly it means we don't have enough money to do a standard paving program in 2026. That said, we had always planned, we being council, my office, and the auditor's office, for, in essence, a gap year. It was a renewal levy. Some of you remember several years ago, the health district did not pass a renewal levy, so they went without a levy for a year, basically. We have positioned ourselves so that we will do, we can still do a paving program in 2026, but it will be scaled back. We will use some of the money that we are holding back this year from this year's paving program. Our fall of 2025 OPWC application, which in recent years we've used for things like stormwater and slips on roadways, will basically be primarily paving. So we will be able to do some paving still next year, just not to the scale that we've done in the past several years. And it would be my hope that council would consider entertaining putting that item on the ballot in the spring of 2026. And so we move on and we keep operating. I wanted to touch on Councilman Barnes' comments, mostly on the Chiillicothe Youth Football League. Last year, that league has grown really exponentially over the last several years, and their home in the park has not, it's grown in the park. And the pressure point that they reached last year was largely around parking. We are working through an MOU that would allow them to park basically on the northern pod of the softball fields that are across the street from where the football league plays. It is a high volume of traffic and parking, and so the essence of the MOU is making sure that any turf damage that is done can be repaired, because the leagues and the kids that play softball in those fields also deserve nice fields and not broken ankles. And then the last thing I'll close on, trying to think if I have something happy to close on. The last thing I'll close on is that the auditor's office and I have been working quite a bit on different projections and scenarios for what the closure of Pixel looks like for city operations. If you look at cash on hand today, our unappropriated balance may be around $4 or $5 million. That's not cash on hand. I'm sorry. That's unappropriated. Cash on hand can fluctuate. That's just for the general fund. And so in our review, different funds, as you might imagine, have different levels of security. So the general fund has a decent amount of reserves. Parks and Recreation, on the other hand, if you estimate that Parks and Recreation gets 0.1% and a portion of that goes to capital, and we estimate, if we just say off the cuff, that Parks and Recreation would lose 10% of the income tax it receives, in a fund like that, the revenue is not diversified. It is basically just the income tax. Now, the general fund, there's all kinds of different revenue streams. So 10% income tax on the general fund might not hurt like 10% revenue income tax lost in Parks and Rec would hurt, which, let's call it $80,000. That's an employee. And so in some divisions and departments and funds, we have started working through how we can start saving money today, because at least the way I think about it is retaining permanent employees is my goal as we weather the situation with Pixel and the ripple effects it might have. So we've started the budget compilation process, and we've asked department heads to attempt for each individual department an initial attempt at 20% cut in operation expenses. That's other than personnel. Now, if you guys are anything like me or my house, the electric bill feels like it's doubled since last summer. So we are dealing with situations where a lot of the operation expense is out of the control of the department heads, but we have them tackling that topic. The first steps that we've taken in terms of short-term or right now savings is, as you might imagine, we have lots of seasonal help for the summer, mowing the grass, that sort of thing. So certain seasonal periods and those temporary employees, those periods will be shortened to get sort of the quickest relief. Then we'll look to attrition and other ways to figure out how to save money. And ultimately, the question I think that we will pose to City Council is, with the operations that we have today, what burn rate for each fund will we tolerate in a budget that we pass, right? Are we okay with burning through $1 million of the reserve in the first year? Are we okay with burning through 25,000, whatever it is? You have to lay that on top of state law requirements that require passing a balanced budget. And so does a balanced budget mean revenue now plus reserves, which I would argue this is what rainy day type funds are for, or not? But the impact to the city is going to be real. City employees and operations is going to be real, and it's going to be fast. Excel, for example, was a very large consumer of water. And so you can imagine the water fund, how does it have any revenue at all from that sort of thing, from the consumption of water and those rates. And so figuring out how we sustain not only a major loss on the income tax side, but on a user of utilities is going to be a big task for us to tackle in the coming months. And so I say that just to prepare the community and city council for potential reduction in services. For example, when we do leaf pickup in the fall, that's mostly seasonal workers, or a lot of seasonal workers. What our leaf pickup program looks like next year versus how we do sort of provide the basics is kind of the question we need to pose to ourselves right now. And so that, I think, is probably enough for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate the information, and obviously, everybody needs to work together through this process. HIG has not been forthcoming with information about what they're looking at in terms of a sale, and so that's the first step. We're going to have to find out what they're going to be doing, and then we'll go from there. But moving on to the auditor's office.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Auditor Spetnagel could not be here tonight, but I am happy to provide a brief report. So piggybacking off of what the mayor said, we do have quite a few challenges posed our way for the budget, which is why we went ahead and just made the request with Councilman Creed to go ahead and waive some items on the agenda tonight. So we appreciate the support from the Finance Committee and City Council. The second item on the agenda, there are just some funds that are hanging out that were not obligated, so we are just paying back the Treasury there. So that's just getting that off of our books. And then items 3 and 6 are just some procedures we have to do annually. So what you're allowing us to do with that is just to get a jump start on that. So we do appreciate you taking that into consideration. And then we do have our schedule that is contingent. It is tentative, but it is not. We tried to build this out this year to avoid too many special meetings for you all and to be mindful of everybody's time. That's not to say that they won't start early, though, so we will be taking your time just on the same day. We are looking at hopefully having a schedule of Monday, October 13th, and I will send you all a report of the departments that you will get presenting on these days. So Monday, October 13th at 5:30, Monday, October 27th at 5:30, Monday, November 10th at 5:30. Those would be all of the meetings for every department to present their budgets. Overall budget and capital will be presented on November 24th at 6:30. And then we built out to have the budget read on December 15th, Monday, December 29th. And then we're looking at potentially Friday, January 2nd or Monday, January 5th for the budget to be passed. It has to pass at the beginning of the year with the new council. So that will be the only special meeting we are looking at throughout this process. We will be happy to provide information as we have it, do some presentations, bring you as much information as possible. We're just trying to get a head start with the challenges that we do have presented our way. So we appreciate your time. And should you have any questions, always contact our office. We are happy to help and get you that information. That is all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Moving on to the law director.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I wasn't going to add anything tonight, except there was one thing that Luke, I know he had a lengthy list, and I didn't want to tack on to his, and I told him that I would mention it because I think it needs to be mentioned. A week ago from today, Luke and I were in a telephone call with, there were a few other people. There was a law firm out of New York, essentially soliciting cities to sign up for this lawsuit that I was unaware of. There was apparently a giant DuPont lawsuit that was recently settled for billions, I guess. They have money to, the whole DuPont class action involved environmental contamination, water contamination, and they're soliciting, they apparently have a list of cities that they want to go in and test the water, and they've already they already settled, or they already contacted all the level 1 cities. We were apparently in the level 2 cities. I asked a ton of questions, and they assured me I would get a follow-up email. So far I have not, but believe me, as soon as I do, I will gladly share. I think this is very important. I want to know how long this has been going on, if anybody knew about it and for how long. And I was not very happy about this. Regardless, it's apparent that they'll come in and test the water, they pay for all of that. They're specifically testing for PFAS chemicals, PFOA, which are bad chemicals. So if we test at least a 2, I guess is the magic number, then we would qualify to get this money to come in and do the, like he said, the remediation and cleanup and on all of our water treatment plants and all the water stations. I think this is very important, and I wanted at least to bring it to your attention that this is happening. And again, I wanted to know the other cities. I wanted to know what levels they were. I wanted to know it all. I got zero information to give you. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that at least this is on the top of our agenda, and I'm anxiously awaiting this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be awaiting any information you have. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to audience participation. Any person wishing to address the council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I'll give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining.
My name is Stephanie Renner. I live at 98 Douglas Avenue. I just wanted to kind of address why we're wearing corpse paint today. It's basically a symbol of the fear and the anxiety we have from living near the toxic plume. Like, basically, we feel pretty scared and anxious about it. It's a visual reminder to show what's at stake: our health, the health of our families, the health of our future families that are going to live here. I guess generally I feel kind of confused about previously when Luke was here, there was more of a sense of urgency, hold Howmet's feet to the fire. And today I didn't get that sense of urgency. So I'm not sure if I'm not fully understanding or why we're no longer asking Howmet to come here and talk to us at the public. So I'm confused about where the sense of urgency has gone. Thank you.
My name is Jamie Brown, 98 Douglas Avenue. I'm going to spend just a few moments talking about the Chevron doctrine. So I think most of you folks understand what the EPA does through that prism. The EPA exists, they create regulation, and then they enforce that regulation. And for most of me and Gunnar, Dan, probably most of our lives, that's been the case. Folks born before the 1980s, they lived in a world before the Chevron doctrine, and now we live in a world post-Chevron doctrine. So the Chevron doctrine was an understanding of interpretation that happened when you used the Clean Water and Air Act, right? So Congress, I'm just going to be frank with y'all because I think you probably agree with this next statement. Congress is full of idiots. Republican, Democrat, they're all idiots. They are opportunists, sleazebags, most of them. Some of them are great people, but most of them are sleazebags. They don't know anything about clean air or clean water. But clean air, clean water, very politically popular. Anyone here who says they don't want clean air or clean water, we're going to shoo you and boo you out of the room. We're all going to agree to that. But because most of those folks are idiots, they're not scientists. And so when you say clean air, clean water, what does that mean? What chemicals, what particles in the air, how should you limit those things? The Congress does not have the capacity nor the wherewithal to legislate every chemical or every compound that would be unclean or whether it's air or water, right? So the Chevron doctrine came about through a series of lawsuits, but it ended with this notion that there is a regulatory piece of our government who is filled with experts, and those experts' jobs are to say, your Congress, you pass the Clean Air and Water Act, and then the EPA will say, we know what you mean, and here's what clean air and clean water looks like. And for most millennials' life, the EPA said what clean air and clean water was, and that was that. And then they had the ability to enforce and to educate. So now we're going to transition into so this happened on two different levels, but specifically nationwide. This was a big hit to that Chevron doctrine. It was in June 2024, so it was Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. So what that did was the Supreme Court that exists now axed it. We no longer operate under Chevron doctrine. So what does that mean? What it means is, as lawsuits from corporations come to the Supreme Court, there will no longer be a deference to the authority of the EPA. So if Congress, in theory, and this is the objective, this is the corporate objective to fight this tort perspective of lawsuit, Congress is going to have to legislate what chemicals and how much of those chemicals constitute clean air and clean water. What does that do? What it does is it clogs up and convolutes the regulatory nature of our government, the regulatory agents of our society. So I want to be clear. Anyone who, the same thing about teachers, I feel about EPA folks. In this climate, in this political climate, if you're teaching and you're working at the EPA, God bless you. I'm really excited that you're still there. You must really love us as people and the world. I really appreciate that service. I don't have a lot of faith in their ability to enforce or enact any kind of meaningful action in terms of clean air and clean water and all of those things, because we have a judicial system that has completely stripped them of the power to do so. So in the context of what my wife just shared, I really appreciate everyone's work in connecting with the EPA. I want to reiterate my trust of the folks' intent and passion who work at the EPA, but I do struggle with, in this moment where this is true, and we can fact check each other, I'd love to talk to you later, corporations do not have an incentive through that regulatory process anymore. I just want to be clear about that. So we're living in this, if you've seen it, it's Idiocracy. You should watch it. It's turning into a documentary. We're living in a time where we really are going to need to, and I'm just going to be clear. I know why we're not talking to Howmet. It's uncomfortable. We just had Pixel leave. I get it. Shit's crazy. I understand the anxiety, but they're just EPA said do 4, and Howmet said, oh, we'll do 2. Yeah. I understand it. I do understand it. I understand some of y'all might be weirded out by what we did today. We're going to keep weirding you out because that's our job, and then we hope you weird out Howmet. And other folks like them. HIG, we can get the camera crews down here. You all have you have a platform.
You got a minute, James.
You have a platform. Other folks have echoed it. HIG, they've been horrible through this transition. And we're not, I believe your job is the bully pulpit, right? Any elected official, your job is to pick the good guys and the bad guys. I think in a small community like this, I trust all of you. I think that you think the good guy is a working class person who is trying to take care of their families and be good neighbors. I believe that. I don't think anyone on here thinks the good guy is some multimillionaire cutting everyone's pensions. We can be brave, though. So why aren't we using this bully pulpit to be loud and proud about HIG is not doing what they're supposed to? A camera crew will come. They want the ratings. It's there. You can do it. I understand why. It's scary. We're anxious about it, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, we'll now move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before council? Hearing none, we'll move on to petitions and correspondence.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I have not received anything.
With regard to new business, is there any new business to come before council this evening? The only thing I would report is that after we created the film commission, I met with two of the members to talk about how that has to be organized, because obviously if it's a city commission, there are certain rules and regulations that probably aren't apparent to some folks. So we went through a long discussion, Councilman Barnes and I and the chairperson. So hopefully we're ready to get moving with that. But I just wanted to report that we had that discussion. If there's no further new business, we'll move on to the reading of ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 6 items on the agenda this evening. Item number 1 is the second reading of an ordinance authorizing the appropriate city officials to return the sum of $34,486 in coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds not obligated by the end of the 2024 fiscal year to the U.S. Department of the Treasury.
Mr. Creed?
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Second by Ms. Preston. Any discussion? The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett?
Yes.
McCourt?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will now call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett?
Yes.
McCourt?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 2 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating funds to cover an increase in costs of citywide insurance policies.
Mr. Creed?
President Shoemaker, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Second by Ms. Bennett. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett?
Yes.
McCourt?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett?
Yes.
McCourt?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 3 is the second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 1151 Downtown Enterprise District of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Chiillicothe.
Mr. President, I would move to amend the ordinance as follows. The title would read, an ordinance amending Chapter 1151 Downtown Enterprise District of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Chiillicothe. The first paragraph of Section 1 would read, in accordance with the recommendation of the Planning Commission and in accordance with Chiillicothe Ordinance 1117.07, Council held a public hearing and hereby amends Chiillicothe Ordinance 1151.03 as follows. Section 3 shall read, notice of the public hearing was made in accordance with Chiillicothe Ordinance 1117.07A.
The motion has been presented. Is there a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Barnes. The clerk will call the roll relative to the motion to amend.
Bennett?
Yes.
Payne? I'm sorry. McCourt?
Yes.
Barnes?
Yes.
McKeever?
Yes.
Dement?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes.
Creed?
Yes.
The ordinance is amended and will move to the next agenda. The next resolution.
Item number 4 is the second reading of a resolution regarding the potential conveyance of a city-owned property located at 145 South Bridge Street and 364 East 5th Street to the Greater Chiillicothe and Ross Development to facilitate future housing development and authorize city officials to continue coordination and review of a potential development agreement.
The resolution will move to the next agenda. The next ordinance.
Item number 5 is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to reallocate appropriated funds between salary and fringe benefit line items within the same fund for the remainder of calendar year 2025.
Mr. Creed,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule, please.
seconded by Mr. Dement. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. The next resolution.
Item number 6 is the first reading of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with Wise Medical Staffing regarding temporary use of city right-of-way at 6 Health Drive for parking lot extension and declaring an emergency.
Resolution will move to the next agenda.
Mr. President,
Oh.
I'd like
Ms.
to
Dunn?
waive the 3-reading rule, make a motion to waive the 3-reading rule.
Is there a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Barnes. The clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived, and the clerk will call the roll relative to the resolution.
Bennett,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn, Creed.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. If there is no other business come before council, I would accept a motion to adjourn by Ms. Bennett, second by Ms. Preston, and the clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn, Creed.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.